Hello, and welcome to the paperwork part 2, the operational forms. If you are a New Jersey state registered family child care provider, we applaud you and the work you have successfully done in order to obtain your registration certificate. As a small business sole proprietor, you're responsible for establishing your own business practices, policies, and procedures. However, they must fall within the state's regulations. We are providing this webinar to help you maintain full compliance with the New Jersey Manual of Requirements for Family Child Care Registration. Under the authority of the Department of Child and Family Services Office of Learning, Child Care Connection is the sponsoring organization, which means we are the agency who is responsible for monitoring your Mercer County-based child care business. We hope you find this webinar on required documents and documentation for your program a helpful supplement to your pre-service training, and will refer back to it on a periodic basis. As your local child care resource or referral agency, please know that we are here to serve as a support for your business. Please do not hesitate to contact us. Also, remember that you do not have to use these exact forms. You can customize it with your logos and add additional details. However, these forms were, however you want to use the forms, but these forms specifically were created to include all the required information you must have for your program and the documentation you must produce when you are monitored. So this specifically is a documentation for your program, for your, we call it the operational side of your program. And I know sometimes we feel overwhelmed and are saying, help, help, I don't know how to do all this and fill all this out. But we want to get you on the side where all your paperwork's done. It's posted where it needs to be posted. It's in my files so that when I am being monitored by Child Care Connection, that I have everything there and ready to go. So we are going to begin with the mandatory forms for your operational side of your business. And then we'll go into some suggested forms that might enhance your program. And then we will, I'll go over some helpful hints, kind of like part 1. I did repeat what I said before, only because in case you didn't watch part 1, we just wanted to get that same introduction for you. Here again, it talks about your USB port, or here it talks about the USB port you receive and what will be on your USB port. Please, this is a reminder to make sure you keep originals in case you need them and that you don't fill them out. But of course, your original paperwork out, but of course you always have your USB port to fall back on. This is where the requirements are in your manual of requirements. So if you wanted to refer back to that to say, why are they asking this, or is this really mandated? You will see here that this information that I'm giving you in this first section is mandated. Here's a checklist for you so that you can check off everything, that you have it, and you know that when you're being monitored, that you have met all the requirements that are all the requirements out of the manual of requirements. So the first thing is emergency numbers. So you want to make sure that you have your emergency numbers posted. We will look for them to be posted up. Put your non-emergency police and non-emergency ambulance on there. It's just good information to have just in case. Make sure you have your address and your phone number on here in case something happens and maybe a parent is there or your substitute's there and nobody has to think about where am I. They can just rattle it off right there because it's posted on your wall. Here you will make the escape plan. So you'll just draw an outline of your home and how you can escape if there is a fire. This is your emergency preparedness plan. And this is mandated, and it's mandated that you have it posted someplace, hanging someplace up in your home so that, and if needed to, somebody can go in there. So you fill all this information in about your own program. Where is your first aid kit located? Where's the closest hospital or clinic? Of course, the police, fire, and ambulance, poison control. And then where is your local management office? No, who do I contacting your local management office. So you want to let them know that you are there. So if anything happens, if there's a fire 2 doors down and you have to evacuate, that police enforcement, the rescue squad, and the fire company all know that there's a family child care provider there. She's going to have, 5 children that she needs to get out, and that she's probably going to need help. So having them know that you're there is really, really important. Portion control is important too. You just never know what a child's going to do. I had a child had eat holly berries out of my backyard, and I had to call poison control. So we want to make sure that you have all that posted so anybody can get to it. We want to make sure you have an evacuation plan in case you have to evacuate children. Where will you go? Who's the contact person there? The address and the phone number of where you'll go. So think of a facility that's close by, a library, maybe a firehouse, another school, someplace where you could take children just in case where you are is not safe, and how you're going to do that. So if you've been a provider for a while and you're watching this, have you been in touch with that facility lately? Is the contact person still the same? So even you might want to do a once a year phone call and just say, I just want to remind you, you are evacuation place. Is this person still working there? If not, who would be my contact person there? And make sure your plan stays updated. And then what procedures are you going to do for relocation? How are you going to notify the parents of the relocation? Where are you going to, how are you going to keep in contact with them before and during the relocation? And then afterwards, how are you going to get the parents back together with their children? How are you going to reunify them? And then you're going to have procedures for shelter in place. Shelter in place would be in case something was happening outside of your home. Maybe a lot of times it's weather related, or maybe there's something dangerous is happening outside of your home that you have to shelter in place. Sometimes your shelter in place needs to be without windows. So you're going to want to make sure that you are near some place where there's very few windows or no windows, maybe a hallway, a bathroom with a small window, some place where you can really kind of hunker down and it would be safe for you and the children. Again, it's the same questions on here: notifying the parents, keeping in contact with them, and getting back together with them in case you have to shelter in place. I had to shelter in place one time because there was a tire fire a couple blocks down, and the smoke was coming my way. So I had to call and let the parents know, hey, just want to let you know that we are sheltering in place. We couldn't go outside. We had to turn off any of the air conditioning. It happened to be the summertime, and we had to stay there until that air shifted or until they got control of the tire fire. So there are times when you do have to do that. Procedures for lockdown. Now, lockdown is if you have to, something is happening outside your home and you can't go anywhere, and you'll be in lockdown with the children. Again, how are you going to notify the parents and communicate with them during and get the parents back with the children if you have to do a lockdown? If you have to evacuate, they want to know what your plan is for transporting children. We realize that even if you don't transport children, this is a special situation. But if you have a child with a special need, how will you transport that child? So consider that. And also, what are you going to bring with you? What for infants and toddlers, you're going to have diapers and wipes and maybe some blankies, or if you have a child with a special need, maybe some medication. A child with special need could be someone with asthma. So am I going to have that medication with me? Am I going to have extra formula with me? What bottled water, things like that. And for a lockdown, they want you to have 24 to 48 hours, or I'm sorry, 72 hours worth of food. in your home, just in case you are locked down and can't go anywhere. So how are you going to do that? And this plan all has to be written out and posted in your home. We will look for it. It's mandated by the manual of requirements. We also ask you to do drills. So we'll ask you to do a fire drill. It's the one drill we'll ask you to do. A fire drill needs to be done monthly, and then you document it on this sheet that you've done it. You fill out all the different columns, and when it says total time to evacuate, please make sure that, it's required that it's under 3 minutes. So this is a fire. Even during a drill, you want to treat it as if it's a fire. So you're not going to be putting shoes on and coats on. You're going to be gathering stuff up as quickly as you can and scooting the children outside the door, and you'll document that. You also need to do lockdown and shelter in place drills with the children, and they have to be done 2 times a year. So you'll document them accordingly as well. And we'll look for that documentation when you're monitored. It is required that you have a sick policy. Now, we put this form here, and notice it says sample because everybody's sick policy is different. So make sure you have a sick policy on file, and that you remind parents of the sick policy, so that if a child gets sick, you can remind them, remember, this is my sick policy. Your child can't come if they are. So everybody's does things differently. So what is your sick policy? How do you want to do it? And these are just suggestions. If a child is exposed to a communicable disease, it is required that you do contact the parents. So what the date was, and then what they were exposed to. So it could be pink eye, it could be the flu. Right now, COVID is really big. I think that's going to kind of stay in our lives. So those kind of things, you would have to let the parent know once the child is diagnosed. Then you would let them know that their child was exposed to that disease. The incident accident report is so important that you write things down when a child gets hurt, that the whole form gets filled out, how it happened. It's so important that we know how it happened, who was there, the first aid you administered, who administered it. Did you have to call an ambulance, or the physician was notified? You contacted the physician. Which parent or guardian was notified, and then your signature, and then you would get the parent to sign it. So if a child gets hurt, maybe a child had an asthma attack, you're going to want to fill out this report. That would be an incident, not an accident. If anything unusual happens, if a child comes in with a mark, you're going to want to fill out this form and let the parent sign it. If mom drops off and the child fell that morning, I got a bruise, mom didn't tell dad, dad picks up and goes, oh my gosh, where did he get that bruise? What happened to him? You can say, oh, he came that way. And you can show him the form that was filled out and signed by the other parent, or, so this form is really, really important to use. This form lets you know what a registered provider must report. So the first, as always, child abuse and neglect. It's important that you report anything that you suspect is child abuse or neglect. So it's reasonable cause to suspect. And then if there's an accident or an injury to a child where they have to go to the hospital, or the death of a child, then you have to let us know. Of course, if it's just an accident or injury, then you let the parent know immediately. But if anything else happens, you have to let us know by the next business day that this happened. If you're moving, you have to let Child Care Connection know. If you had any damage to your home, any criminal convictions by you, your assistant, substitute, or anybody in the household, you need to let us know immediately. If you're terminating your child care, let us know immediately. Emergency contact information for a sick or injured child. That's for the doctor, hospital, or ambulance crew. If you have to, we talked about that. If you have to take a child to the hospital, that's in part 1. Written accident record for the parent of the injured child, any communicable disease to all parents. Any children with handicapped or special needs, you need to let us know that if you've taken a child like that, that has any special accommodations. We talk about that in part 1 in the Universal Health Form. If there is a plan for the child, we need to see that. It's mandated. Your a sick policy you have to have, the name of your substitute assistant or alternate. Please let your parents know that. If pets smoke in your home, how parents can contact us, Child Care Connection. That needs to be someplace. Change in information, renewal of your application, or you will let us know. And if your registration has been suspended, any revocation or renewal of your registration, non-renewal of your registration, you need to let the parents in your care know, so that if they are a subsidy child, a subsidy family, they have to find some place else to go, and other parents they need to be informed. The other form under operations, well, this is just for you to have. It gives you the physical and behavior indicators of child abuse and neglect. So if you suspect anything, you kind of look on here and it will give you an idea if this is something you should be concerned about. And please always reach out to Child Care Connection. We are here for that. Supervision. Supervision is so important. And, when children are being supervised, it really does limit and lower the amount of incidents and accidents that happen in the home. But we want to make sure that, or it is mandated, that you are within earshot of a child. We recognize that sometimes you have your own personal needs that you need to take care of, but you need to be within earshot and be able to respond to a child immediately if something happens. And, like what I used to do was when I went to the bathroom, I'd bring the children with me and sit them outside the door and talk to them or sing to them, or have books available right there in a basket. And everybody gets a book while Miss Patty is using the bathroom. Children know about that because a lot of them are being potty trained themselves. So that's what I would do. Make sure that you're prepared for your meals, so that you're very little bit of time to get the meal from the kitchen onto the table for the children. It's already warmed, or it's already ready to be warmed, or you have it set up. But you are expected to, it is important that you supervise the children diligently. Nobody under 14 can be left alone with children. Children are never to be left alone. You're expected to be present 75% of the time. If you have a substitute or an alternate, you need to make sure that 75% of the time for an substitute, for 50% of the time if you have an alternate provider who has been trained and approved by Child Care Connection to work with them. Children may ask to leave your home to visit a friend or attend group activities. You must have the parents' permission, but this is something that we caution you about. When they're in your care, they're in your care, but make sure you look at the whole supervision policy and know what is best for children. The checklist for orientation training. This is not the orientation training you took with us. This is for you to conduct with your substitute and alternate provider. This is specific information about your program, your policies and procedures, any special needs or health concerns. You would say to them, this is where it is, where it is in the file, where it is behind that cabinet. Any nutrition needs of the child enrolled, where do you keep that? Any planned activities, emergency contact information, mandated reporting, procedures for emergency preparedness, all that stuff we talked about before, that you have to let your staff know what your plan is. You need to have a schedule for your family child care. So a schedule is really important because children like routine, and they they thrive on routine. So if you have to call in a substitute or an alternate in, that you have that scheduled there so they know exactly what you do when you do it. And it doesn't have to be exact, but it does give them a good idea of what the children expect. Also know that this form is very fluid. You might have a bunch of infants at one point and your schedule will be different. The infants grow older and then your schedule changes. So change your schedule according to how it really works best for your childcare. You might create a schedule and it doesn't work. And then you have just recreate another schedule, because we're going to kind of look at this when we come and see how it's going. And if you are following a schedule, this needs to be posted in your childcare space. Okay. So that's all the mandatory operational forms. Now we're going to go to the suggested forms. Now, these again are forms suggested to enhance your program. The first form I want to talk about is this form is called emergency phone numbers forms, but this is what I call all in one shot. Everything is right there for all the children in your care. So if something happens, you pull this one form, although you do have to have all the other forms, but you pull this one form and then this will help you to have all the information you need about the parents, who to get a hold of, who their emergency contact is, all that stuff about the child, each child, if you need it. A parent handbook is really important to have so that parents know exactly what they can expect from you and what you can expect from them. I'm not going to go through this. It pretty much, you can pick and choose what you want to put in your handbook. And then this is not say, don't print this out and use it, because this only says what you might put in these different areas. It doesn't have specific information. Everybody's different. You have to come up with your own policies, your own handbook. How are you going to handle things? What are your expectations from parents? I suggest that if you have an interview with a parent, you give them that handbook, let them look it over before you talk to them again, and then do a follow-up. Did you get a chance to look at the handbook? Because it's going to give you a really good idea if that's going to be a good fit for you. Some people let the parents have the parents sign it and say that they've read everything and they understand the policies, procedures of the program. These are sample interview questions that you might want to use for programs. For parents. When you're interviewing them, look at them over, take some out, throw some more in. You will, as you interview parents, you're going to know what to ask and everything. But these questions just help you kind of give you a roundabout idea about the family and the child, and again, to see if they're a good fit, because that's what you're looking for. These questions came from ProCare Solutions. That's where we got them from. So I just wanted to say that, so they got credit for those questions. Another form you might want to use is, we call it the family childcaregram. This is just kind of letting families know what the kids did all day, and give them an idea of how they ate, how they rested, how much toileting did they do, how many bottles did they have, and when did they have them. Please send, this is a spot for you to put, I need new clothes, I need diapers, I need wipes, whatever the case may be, and other notes as you seem fit. And then the last form I want to talk about is how to apply for an EIN number. Your employee identification number is used for tax purposes for the parents. The child care is a write-off, so the parents need to have if you don't have the EIN number, they will ask you for your Social Security number. They have to have something stating that they paid for childcare. So the EIN number really helps keep your Social Security number secure and keeps you from giving that out. So you might want to have that EIN number available, and this is how you can do it. So there are suggested forms. I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope it gets you from this pile of paperwork here to this little pile here, and that you get everything put together. Of course, we have helpful hints for your operational files as well. Contact the local agency and school and building to see if you can evacuate from your home. If you have to evacuate from your home, that you can go there, and keep in touch with them on a regular basis. Fill out all the paperwork completely. And if you need assistance, please contact us. Make sure you complete an orientation with your staff and document it. Conduct your drills. Your fire drills are monthly. Your lockdown and shelter in place is twice a year. And oh, what I didn't say about your drills, and I'm glad that I came back to helpful hints, is that every child has to be in care or has to practice the drill, I'm sorry, for when you have your drills. So if you're have a day where every child showed up, that might be a day to do your fire drill because every child's there. If not, then you have to do it again when any children that were missing were not there during that time within that same month. The same way with the lockdown and shelter in place, all the children have to have been able to practice that twice a year. So make sure that all the children get it. And if you do shifts, then you have to do it that way as well. Create a schedule that works best for you. Whenever a child gets injured in your care with a bruise or a mark, document it. Even if they hit their head and you don't see anything, for anybody that hits their head, I definitely would document that. And please remember that if a child goes to an emergency room, or worse, if a child dies in your care, it is mandatory that you contact Child Care Connection no later than the next working day to report the incident to the Resource Development Department. And again, here's the team, and any one of us are here to help you and work with you to make sure that you have what you need for your program. I hope this helps. Thank you.